Meanwhile, at least one lawmaker is not relying on just rhetoric to make his case on why we should raise the minimum wage. Democratic Congressman Steve Horsford from Nevada recently went undercover, donning the famous brown UPS uniform as he delivered packages, getting an A from the ground perspective, for working. Hansford touted UPS as an example of a company that's doing the right thing by paying its entry-level workers well above $7.25 an hour. Congressman Steve Horsford joins me now. Sir, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Tamron. Good to be on.
Okay, so listen, we've seen lawmakers in the past, for example, do or try to live on food stamps for a short period of time to bring attention to what life is like for those people who have to live day to day on so very little here. UPS drivers, the average pay $32.50 an hour, entry level $11 to $12 an hour. What were you attempting to prove by working as a UPS person for that period of time?
Well, sometimes being here in Washington, members can be feel a little disconnected from their constituents. And I wanted to have an on-the-ground perspective of what it is like to work every day for a living and to really focus on the needs of middle-class workers. And so I spent the time at UPS serving as a driver alongside Mark as his apprentice, learned some new skills, and I'm fighting to increase the minimum wage. And for me, it's not about partisanship, it's about people and lifting 30 million Americans' wages by increasing the federal minimum wage.
Well, obviously, you know, there are a lot of jokes to insert when you say as a congressman you wanted to get out and work. Maybe not you personally, but many people in America believe there's very little happening in Congress. That's why the approval is just about 9%, because not enough work is getting done. With that said, for example, Jack in the Box is saying, or at least not in full support of raising the minimum wage. According to them, if they raise the minimum wage $8 to $10 in 2016, prices would go up 1% in California. When you hear businesses say, like a Jack in the Box, that raising the minimum wage to $10 would in the end affect the consumer, how much we pay for a Jack in the Box burger or fries, what do you say in response to that?
Well, look at the states that already have a higher minimum wage. My home state of Nevada, for example, we have a minimum wage that's higher than the federal minimum wage, and that is not the case. Prices are not higher in my state than they are across the state border where there is not a higher minimum wage. And so raising the minimum wage is good for workers. 30 million Americans would have their wages lifted. 900,000 people who are currently living in poverty would be closer to the middle class by raising the minimum wage. It's good for the economy, it's good for consumers, and it's good for business.
But you know, of course, I must ask you about the CBO report regarding raising the minimum wage. It's been a hot-button issue and something that your colleagues on the other side of the aisle have pointed to. According to the analysis from the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, increasing the minimum wage to $10.10 would lift, yes, 900,000 workers out of poverty, but they say it would cost some 500,000 jobs. Your response to that long-term conclusion of the CBO report indicates?
Well, we can't cherry-pick certain provisions within that CBO report. Within that report, it also said 30 million Americans would see their wages increase substantially, providing more disposable income for them to go out and, you know, buy a refrigerator, buy a new washer and dryer, maybe buy a new car. That's going to grow the economy, because in the end, it's about the middle class, growing the economy from the middle class out. It's what we need to be doing here in Washington, and that's why I'm ready to work on behalf of 2/3 of Americans who believe it's time to give America a raise.
Congressman Horsford, thank you so much for your time. We greatly appreciate it. Quite an experience you had there. Thanks. Well, up next, new fallout.